Okay, and we're live. We have a very special guest this evening. We have Fire Chief Dave Gregory with us.
Thanks, Grayden. Thanks for the invite.
He's one of the local celebrities. Welcome to the show.
I wouldn't say celebrity, but thank you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the mayor is not able to make it this evening, so you'll just have to make do with the two of us.
Hey, perfect. That's perfect.
But we've got a lot of important things to cover. The fire department reached out and they said, hey, we'd love to talk about fire safety and do a 2025 year in review.
Right. So fire safety, Kim and her team, Kim Destin, Chief Fire Prevention Officer Kim Destin, and her team with Matt and Shannon, they're doing a spectacular job. They did a great job in 2025, and they're continuing that. I know Kim is doing a huge blitz right now of the downtown.
Yep.
Any of you know that we had some major fires downtown.
Mm-hmm.
We had the one across from Holy Angels and then the one across from John Street there. So we've had some major structure fires in the core.
Mm-hmm.
And that always creates issues. There's displacement of people from their houses, business disruptions, street disruptions, because most of them, because of the age and infrastructure that's involved with them, they usually end up being a tear down.
Mm-hmm.
The one that was at Lucky Gardens across from Holy Angels, that came in at a bizarre time in the morning. First thing in the morning, the crews were already kind of milling around the floor. And it's one of those calls that you see on TV that upon arrival, they had people hanging out the windows.
Wow.
So this is stuff you see in the Bostons, the New York, the Chicagos, where because the time frame aren't as good as ours, our guys pride themselves and our team within that 6 to 8 minute mark for the NFPA. They were on scene and there was people out the window. So they were laddering the building, pulling people out the window. So it was one of those challenges, and our guys saved everybody in there. At one point, they thought that there was somebody missing, but they had left their wallet and cell phone behind and had disappeared and then came back. And it was one of those moments of, hey, there's our person. What a great moment that was. And it's a tragedy to lose an old building like that in the downtown. But the buildings on the east and west side of that were saved and, did a good job.
And that's the same as the building that went up right beside the transit building, where there were actually people in those apartments as well. And the fire department were there. They suppressed the fire.
Right.
It didn't spread in. And I know the city actually put in fire barriers between those two buildings.
Right.
Which actually made, they believe, a big difference.
Big difference. And then, if the bus depot's there. So if that would have extended into that area, that's a huge thing where we lose our transit and the cost of replacement and stuff. So again, our guys were on scene and mitigated the situation.
So Chief, how do we help prevent those types of fires from breaking out?
So it's a lot of it is education. Prevention is the best tool in firefighting. If you can get the word out there and then enforce it, like I said, Kim's doing a great job of the social media posts where she puts out the messaging that check your smoke alarms, make sure you have the smoke alarms, the carbon monoxide alarms in your house on your floor, outside your sleeping areas on each floor for the smoke alarms, and then just those public messaging pieces and reiterating to the public that this is a cheap life-saving device. The cost of a smoke alarm, the cost of a CO alarm, and if you're in an apartment, it's up to your landlord to maintain and make sure that they're working. If you're in an apartment and they're not working, then that's your landlord's duty to make sure that they're working in good order and replaced in time too. So like I said, I always boost our fire prevention team and our suppression guys too. The job that they're doing with the public education, just being out there in the public and people ask and they come in and our guys, I can't check my smoke alarms. Well, our guys will go out to their house. They'll say, hey, we'll go in, don't go up on the ladder. We'll come out and we'll check your smoke alarms and stuff for you. So it's just good public education. That's that piece for prevention.
And Kim's actually up for one of the impact awards, the Chambers.
That's exciting. And I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
And root her on. She's great. She worked with her for 20 some odd years. And she's great for our department. She does a good job. She does a lot of stuff in the public too, outside the department. So.
Yeah. And she was talking about when we were there was one story about a call that she got from Reuters News about a clip that was going around. Ostensibly, it was a missile that had hit. What It was a
So
place in the Middle East, right?
So it was somewhere in the Middle East, and she got a call, and it was right like again, yeah, it was Reuters News,
Mhm.
and it was a missile strike, and it was Tel Aviv or somewhere like that, and there was a missile strike, but it was footage of our fire on Inkerman Street.
Yeah.
You could see our trucks and our ladders and hear this big fire and plumes of smoke. And they say, well, there was just a missile strike at this, and it was footage from our fire. So she says, you got to see this. We're on the news. And it was pretty exciting. Hey, we made Reuters News, and
Yeah.
we're on,
Not the Middle
CNN
East,
and all
not
this
a
stuff.
missile
Yeah, this
strike.
isn't Middle East. This is Inkerman Street.
Yeah.
St. Thomas.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, she was saying that she talked to Reuters. She's like, nope, that's actually not. That's incorrect. Let's pull that.
Yeah.
Let's pull that stuff
Pull
out of
that
there.
piece out of there. She called me, and I was in my office, and she called
Yeah.
me. Dave, you got to get in here. What do we got going on?
Right? Of all the
we got
things.
a missile strike. Oh boy. So no,
yeah,
good.
But she's incredible. The amount of work that she does, the different events she goes to. I know, like as for the Downtown Development Board, like you guys are always out for nostalgia nights, and for the pumpkin prowl, you've got your truck out there as well, and you're helping educate the people, and you've got the hats for the kids.
Right, and that's the best part. Like seeing us in the public. People approach us, and then they ask those questions. They'll ask, why do you send such, a big truck to a call, and why do you do this, and why do you, we see you there with the ambulance or before the ambulance? Well, there's a reason. There's a response agreement, and a lot of times we're there, a little bit before the paramedics, and then maybe it's an assist. And we're highly trained. We even have 5 paramedics on staff and a nurse on staff. So we're doing those preemptive things before the medics get there. And then we're just like when we're at those events too, just those public education pieces again, those questions that they ask, and you can say, well, this is why we do this, and why do you go down Talbot Street? Well, we have control of all the lights. It's the easiest access through town because you always get those. And
so when you say you have control of all the lights, that means you can switch the lights as you're going down the street?
So when we leave the hall at Wellington Street, the lights, there's they call it an opticom, and it changes the lights in the direction you're going. So it'll change the lights at Wellington and First. So it'll make it green for us so we don't have to stop. So then we have on our trucks the same device that changes the lights in our favor going along Wellington, and then changes them on Talbot Street too.
Oh, very cool.
So when our other trucks coming from the north end on Burwell Road, it can do the same thing. So we don't have to bring a big truck to a full stop and start again. Time is of the essence. Yeah. We have to get there on time. We have to do our thing, and those life-saving measures. So we have full control of the lights.
Right on. One of the questions I had from some viewers, and this is just out of I just came up with it. I was like, oh yeah, I should ask this one. They're talking about like, why not Center Street versus Talbot Street? Is that because you have control of the lights on Talbot?
Correct. And then Center Street's a little bit narrower too. So if you've seen the size of our aerial truck, it's quite hard to make those turns and then navigate through the traffic. With Talbot Street, when you have control of the lights and they see that you're coming, everybody's really good in the city of St. Thomas for the most part that they pull off to the right and allow us to go through. So we have the first, usually we respond with the pumper first and then the aerial, and then the second pump comes through. So we have that access. We don't have to, weave in and out of traffic a whole lot. You see it in London. I go to London. I feel sorry for the fire trucks that they're on Wellington Road that are stuck in traffic, have nowhere to go because they have an island in the middle, can't go anywhere right. So they're stuck in traffic.
So how do you feel about the bump outs that were added onto Talbot? Do you have any opinions on those?
They're fine. We know they're there. We do a lot, and that's part of our pre-plan. We pre-plan areas. When we're out driving around, it's just not, for the sake of driving around. They're checking out the areas. They're checking what's new streets, new intersections, new buildings, boundary adjustments, whatever boundary adjustments. So we're at industrial development. I'll try the industrial site, looking at where we're at with PowerCo, where the gates are for if there was an emergency at these stages too.
Right, because if they have a fire out there, you're going to have to go.
We are first ones going.
Yeah,
we're prepared for that. We're doing some planning. I was in Cambridge today, meeting with the company that's supplying us an industrial pumper. So we were there talking about what that looks like, time frame of delivery, and so we had those conversations. So this has all been part and parcel of where we're going moving forward, of how we're going to mitigate anything that happens in the whole industrial development, not just PowerCo or Viano, but whatever else goes there.
Yeah, It's gonna be a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, but we're up for the challenge, and we have a good team.
You have a great team.
Oh, not just our team
Yeah.
at Fire, but all the other players too. Police, from our city manager through our whole, all of our directors. We have a great team, and we work well together. So whenever you need something, you can reach out to planning or parks or whoever, and it's just a seamless conversation.
Totally. Shout out to Parks. I know Parks.
Way to go, Adrian.
Yeah, they do such a good job.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to jump back to 2025. So you're saying the incidents were up. What's happening in the city right now?
Well, knock on wood. Now we're really good. We haven't had, and I'll say this, and it'll
we got wood.
Cost me. We haven't had any structure fires in 2025 or 2026. In 2025, we had 25 structure fires. So that means that we're out. These are not your dumpster fires, your car fires, your small. These were actual working structure fires. So when that happens, we have to have our minimum staffing on site, and then we have to plan for what's next. So why we're tied up at these events, and they're usually lengthy events, we have to add additional staff in. Think of who we're putting on site to relieve for workloads, rehab, any extra things that we need to do, whether we need to set up a RIT team for rescues, or we just plan on a secondary call. We also have to staff our halls in case we get another call.
So how does that work with the city's budget for fire?
It's not, and I'll be honest, it's not great. It's hard to budget because it's an unknown. You could say, okay, this year we had 25 big fires. We can budget for that and then be, lucky and hit that mark.
Right.
Or we don't have as many fires and we look like heroes because we didn't spend as much. It's a hard portion to budget for because you just don't know what the year is going to bring.
Right. I remember we were talking the last time you were on the show. We were talking about CN and whether or not they were going to compensate the St. Thomas Fire Department for the railway tie fire. Did they ever come through with any of that funding?
I'd have to ask my deputy. I'm pretty sure they did. They helped us out because we used some significant amount of foam for them and at that call. And I'm almost positive that we were reimbursed for that call. And we have other avenues for doing things like that with some of the insurance companies that we can help offset, not manpower costing, but equipment that we break and hoses, nozzles, and whatever. So we have different avenues to offset those costs. It doesn't fall back on the taxpayers.
Yeah. So you're saying 25 structure fires last year or structural fires last year. This year, none so far?
None so far.
That's incredible.
It's So, and if Kim's watching this, she'll say, "You did it. You said it." And then, yeah. Shouldn't have said it.
Okay, so how can we continue to keep that trend going on? What are your recommendations?
Well, just keep doing the public education pieces. The bigger fires, the Increment Street, that was an abandoned building.
Yep.
There's no kind of way that we can mitigate things like that ahead of time. The vacant building on Talbot Street, and then the other ones, I'm not sure. It's still under investigation. There's still some stuff pieces, but the home structure fires, a lot of it's early warning. Make sure that it's not going to stop people from having fires all the time, but it's going to help. The sooner that you were notified, the sooner we're there. So upon a 911 call, for us to dispatch and respond, we're 8 minutes. So that's getting dressed, jumping in the truck, and responding, which is amazing in any city. You don't get that in the big cities.
Yeah.
So in that 8 minutes is pretty significant. And there's a formula out there that the fire grows exponentially with every minute on top of that. It gets to the point where you're not entering the building. Now we call it a surround and drown, where it's a defensive fire instead of offensive.
Right.
We get there early, we can go in and mitigate stuff. We get there late, then it's, especially with the newer builds, because they're all glued together and it creates some issues.
Yeah. What kind of issues?
So like anything that's glued and you add heat to it, it becomes structurally unsound. The old legacy homes, I'll say in the courthouse district, they're a lot stronger. The timber frame stuff, the newer homes, it's just that it's the laminated stuff. So heat and laminates don't go great together.
Interesting.
But they are structurally more sound when they're in the natural state.
Without the fire. Yeah.
Add a little fire, it creates some issues.
Yeah. And we were just talking too that Kim's working in the downtown to help the downtown business owners kind of better understand the issues they're facing. And I've asked her to come in as the chair of the downtown development board to come in and say a few words to our business owners to help educate them on what they can do to help prevent fires within their buildings as well. And just as one of the things that she mentioned to me was that if you have a downtown building, it might have been renovated over a century. So there could be stuff going on there. It's not just an ask. It's not just like a smoke detector that needs to go on every floor or a CO detector on every floor necessarily. It's like, and the fire department, she says, is happy to come in if you need an inspection.
Right. And that's really good. So I can go back. So I spent some time before I was in this role in fire prevention. So I went from the suppression division and then made a move into prevention for a while. And some of the things you learn about, those voids in walls, that create things, those hallways, those different things where they've taken a room and they've converted into 3 different rooms, and you don't know those, you don't know the layout. So when they're out not only trying to protect and prevent anything, they're also doing some educational pieces that they can bring back to our firefighters, saying, if you go to ABC development, be aware that there's X amount of rooms upstairs that you don't see from the road. You see from the road, you see a bunch of windows, but you don't know what's going on behind those walls. When they get up there, that's because when we go in, it's not bright and sunny like this. It's blacked out conditions and you can't see.
Yeah.
Right. So you're using thermal imaging cameras, you're using your senses and your search and rescue stuff. But if you know, when you pre-plan ahead, you'll know, okay, if I go to the top of the stairs, it's right, left, and what's going on.
Yeah. And I just read on the Facebook that the city's getting an extra drone. It's going to be operated by the fire department.
Yeah, so we have a drone with fire prevention, but it's getting older. So that's used in like if we had a big fire where like a Talbot Street thing that they can bring out. So a 360 is when they check around and see what's going on. From if you're on the street view, you can't see what's going around on. So your radio communications drone can do that. Kim's team can do that for investigations and other things. This drone will be for like emergency management. So if there's a big emergency and we're set up somewhere and we need to see what's going on in another area, we can send the drone off to do that.
That's awesome. So if you fly drones, don't fly them around an active fire.
Right.
Because you might be running into
another drone.
Yeah.
And Kim's actually our drone pilot too. So she's one of our drone pilots, and then another firefighter. But and they took the course, and they watched other departments at this course. They crashed their drones, and we didn't crash our drones. So
I heard about that. Yeah.
it was a neighboring department that crashed their drone.
That's an expensive.
It's very expensive.
Yeah,
it's a trial and error. So no, but we're good that way.
So public education we just covered, kind of like roughly in terms of the downtown. I also want to mention that I was there for the West Johnson ceremony that the police put on, and it was incredible to see the community come out and celebrate this fellow and give him an honorary cadet role. And then the police brought me in, and I got to shoot some of the behind the scenes with the family and with West, just to kind of give people a kind of a more comprehensive feel for the whole ceremony.
Yeah, and I saw that footage, and that's spectacular. Mark and his team do a great job in the city. And Mark and I have been friends for a long time, and I can say that he does a great job in the community, and his team. And the police don't get enough praise. I know you do the police and fire thing, and
you guys have fun with it. But the reality is
they do a fantastic job. And we have a great relationship. St. Thomas is unique, where police, fire, EMS have a great relationship. You don't get that in a lot of other cities.
Yeah,
you have those battles between whose department's better.
One of my friends was a paramedic in Toronto for a while, and I don't think they had that relationship with their different departments.
And we have that great relationship. And we hired 3 medics from this area onto the fire department, and the relationship that we made with them through the years, created that that when they wanted to switch was just that dynamic that they had coming into the fire department.
Yeah. And if you're already working together well, like you're doing, like I couldn't imagine like going into a high intensity situation and not having a cordial relationship.
Right.
Because I feel like that would just be a tinderbox waiting to just go.
And I always say to people, we're there for the same outcome.
Yeah.
safety's first, and make sure that the public's safe, and we're doing the right things, and then we're safe too. So if we all work together, it seems to work a lot better.
Yeah. And one of the things Kim also says, I was just at the leadership conference doing the AV, and Kim was brought in as a speaker. She filled in. Tara McCauley was unfortunately not able to be there, so Kim stepped in, and she said, it's like if you've got, you break your arm, you call the ambulance. If there's a crime that's committed, you call the police, and then for everything else, you call the fire department.
Pretty much. We've been to some pretty amazing calls, and I can, some through my career too, where we've been called to certain things like, it's funny. We don't get the cat in the tree calls.
No,
back in the day,
classic cartoon.
Back in the day when, leaders before me the response would be, you don't see any cat skeletons in the trees, right? So they'll come down. They'll come down, and so those aren't the ones. But we go to, we do water rescue.
Yes.
So we'll do water rescue. We train with water rescue. We have the boat. We have rapid deployment craft that we do. So we train in that. We do auto extrication. We do search and rescue. We do confined space. So I like to say, a lot of departments, the bigger departments, they have teams of those different, jobs that are part of the fire department. We don't. So I always tell people, St. Thomas is a Swiss Army knife of firefighting, because you could be that firefighter in that mid-range where today you could be a driver. The next shift you come in, you could be an acting captain. The next one you could be working a dispatch shift. We're off on our dispatchers. And then you could be an acting captain. Or on the back end, right in the back end. So the different roles, you're in a different role, and you learn all the roles. So when the bell goes for an auto X, you know your role. Water rescue, you know your role. Ice rescue. So they know all the roles. So it's kind of, that's what I've always loved about St. Thomas, and the 32 years that
32 years
32 years tomorrow. You imagine April Fool's was my start date.
No way, really?
Yeah, April Fool's Day. I started in 1994. So 32 years tomorrow, which is incredible. So more than half my life I've committed to the St. Thomas Fire Department, and hope to keep.
Has it all been at the St. Thomas Fire Department?
Always with St. Thomas Fire.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know anything different. I've never, I've worked at other places, but this has been my career and my family, and I love every day of it. So hopefully get a few more years out of it.
So what are those 32 years? What's the most memorable experience that you've had, or maybe like 2 or 3?
Wow. There's those memorable ones that haunt you. And then there's those memorable ones of just those aha moments.
Yeah.
And then we have those bad calls, but it's part of, going to those calls. That's part of the job. And I've always said to people is, you didn't create the problem. You're just there to help. You didn't create this. We've had those, the big fires where you've gone and, you've put out the fire and you've saved the family. 200 Chestnut was very tragic in our history. We lost Captain Redmond. We lost a resident of that building, but of the, 40 other apartments there, we successfully removed those people from that building on the worst storm, worst conditions of firefighting.
Yeah.
And then you have those, those calls where you go and you're not needed and the family thanks you. And then I had a moment where we were at an event in the summer. One of the teachers that works for my wife, she's my wife's principal in West Lorne. And she comes up and she just says, you don't remember me? I said, no. She says, I'm from St. Thomas. I live on, XYZ street. And she says, you saved us from a house fire back in the late 90s. And I was like, wow, I remember that fire. And she remembered me. And it was like, wow, that's worth 32 years right there.
Yeah.
So those moments are spectacular. And the relationships and the friends that you create, the people that you worked with back in the day and the people you work with now, those are lifetime relationships. You just don't get in other jobs, when you leave I'll say an auto industry or, you don't see those people ever again. These people we still play golf and have breakfast with and keep in touch with.
Yeah. It's pretty
unique.
Incredible.
Yeah. It's an incredible career.
And speaking of Captain Redmond, you have the fire department has released the honorary coins again.
Challenge coins are back out again. So we had, I'm not sure the number, maybe it was 100 or so, 200 that were created the first time, and they went right away. So we had a ceremony from, MP Flack was there, Solicitor General was there, and then city manager, mayor, our council members, retirees that were there that night of 200 Chestnut, our staff, and we delivered the coins, and then had a few people reach out. So we ordered more. We put it on our social media page, and they've been selling. So, and what's unique is everybody comes in has a story. I get this because my son's a firefighter in BC. Well, that's great. Or my mom lived at 200 Chestnut.
Right.
You guys saved my mom. I want one of these coins in memory of that. Or, I want to be a firefighter someday, and this is kind of neat. Or I lived in Rodney and I knew Dennis Redmond. So those stories, or West Lorne, wherever they were from. And so we were keeping track of these stories. And one of the counselors said to me yesterday, start, sharing those stories on social media, some of those things. So we're going to do that. I'll talk to Kim and get those out there.
Yeah. Got one comment in here from Tony Bendel. He's saying, we really have an amazing fire service here. Our community is super lucky to have the firefighters. And when I started Extinguishers for Cindy, they were the very first organization to join me in trying to make our roads safer.
I remember that. I remember Tony and doing that and having those days and giving out the fire extinguisher for people in their cars and having the sticker on the back window saying you had a fire extinguisher in the car. It was a great concept, having those there. Like the worst feeling is coming up to something and being that helpless feeling.
Yeah. And for anyone who doesn't know, that was started in response to one of his friends who was caught in a car fire, and another one of his friends pulled up, and there was no extinguisher. So he was there while.
Correct. Yep. That's the story completely.
So he needed the fire extinguisher.
Yeah. So it's when you have that and you at least feel like you've accomplished something. You've tried.
Yeah.
You don't feel helpless. So it was a great program that he did with that.
Yeah. And it's got to be hard too, because a lot of the stuff that you're dealing with and you're handling, you can't really talk about publicly.
Right.
So you kind of have to talk around it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's got to be really difficult.
Oh, it is. All those, when they ask, when you have a big fire and those questions, what happened and where did it start? Because you get the people on the street and you get the, hey, and the people that the people you grew up, because I grew up in St. Thomas, lived here all my life.
Pretty tight community.
A very tight community. And, I hung out with, Steve Peters when we were kids.
Soccer
and hockey and stuff together. And those challenging conversations of what happened or where did it start? How did it start? I'll leave that, at this time, we'll just leave it up to fire prevention. Give it off to Kim. Kim, you answer that.
Well, she's great at that.
Oh, she's good at that. She's good at answering.
If anyone's going to handle it. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah. Are there any other topics you want to cover out here before we close up?
Just that we're, like I said, I was away today dealing with the industrial stuff and how that's moving along, and and again, just to reiterate the great team we have at St. Thomas Fire. I'm lucky to be in this situation as the fire chief. I don't think of myself as a fire chief. I think of myself as just a part of a big team, and they make me look good. They do their job. They go out and and every day we're proud of what they do.
Yeah. You guys do an incredible job.
Thanks, Grayden.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on the show. And
thanks for having me out in this beautiful country spot, pulling up to, leaving my farm and pulling up to another horse farm. This is spectacular. I love it.
And this is the first live podcast.
And it went well.
From the new studio.
It went well.
Yeah. So, if you have any other questions, let us know. We can always bring the fire department back in to answer questions, anything around fire safety or just general questions. They're a great team.
Perfect.
They're happy to share everything.
Thanks, Grayden.
All right. Take care, guys. We're going to roll the credits here, and we'll see you next week.